Hello, everyone. So good to see you all. And I see some familiar faces. Lee, I see you waving and dialing in from Scotland, are you? Yes. Yes, so we have some international presence today. Thanks for joining us, Lee. We couldn't be more thrilled to see all of you on this session. If you feel comfortable, we'd love to have you go on camera. We typically have very conversational sessions, and Bonnie, I see you are swaying away to the music and enjoying the music. And Karen, great to see you. Hey, Tom. Some great faces, and Marsha's joining us from the Philippines. So yes, we are going to go ahead and get started. Let's just start off with, why are we here? And it's this idea of what's happening in healthcare. The high quality personalized care has never been greater in the healthcare industry. And, patients are looking for more and more. They want something that's frictionless and smooth. They want a customized experience. And all of this in the midst of when payers, providers, and life science companies are just being asked to do more with less. And so we're going to open up this session today with some great conversations. But I always like to start off with introductions. So I'll spend a minute introducing myself. I like to do it in 6 images. The image in the top left is me in Scotland. I grew up in Scotland. That was me when I was 12, when I was playing the bagpipes. I share that image not to say that I love playing musical instruments, but to say that, I was an immigrant coming into the US, and that perspective has been amazing as I've navigated my journey. The image in the middle is Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady. She was in power when I left school. And what that meant is, my granddad and my dad, who were coal miners, were on strike. And that trickled down to me not being able to go to university. I had to go to work in a factory, and I went to work in a semiconductor factory for a number of years. And then fast forward, I was the chief talent officer for a company called Jabil, and we had 30 billion in revenue and responsible for 250,000 employees. And some of our customers were Johnson & Johnson. Some of our customers were Baxter Healthcare. Some of our customers were some of the top healthcare companies in the world. And that's really where my first interest came. The top right is my daughter, Hannah. That's in Penang. She's a twin. She's 20 now. She's very focused, and you can see that from her image. She's studying public health. Her twin sister, Emily, on the bottom left is more playful, and you can see more social, and yet she suffers from anxiety, and in fact that led to depression and her being suicidal. And the reason I share that is we never know what's going on in people's lives. And in the world we live in today, one of the top leadership qualities is empathy and kindness and leading with curiosity. And so that's one of the reasons I share that. The middle image, that was me when I lived in Singapore. That was in Taiwan when I spent some time with the recruiters on my team and out for dinner. And then the bottom image, I'm part of a community where the police community are trying to connect with the young Black African-American youths before they get to teenage years, which is the breaking point where it becomes really difficult. So I would like to personally welcome all of you to this session, and it's a pleasure to have you. I am going to hand over to one of our guests, Alan Mavis from Baxter Healthcare. Alan, would you like to go next and share your perspective?
Happy to do so, Audrey, and an honor to be part of this webinar. And I see many friends as attendees, so terrific. So starting in the upper left, that's a picture of the Cleveland Browns playing the Denver Broncos many years ago when I was young, and my father used to take us to the game. And I grew up outside of Cleveland in a suburb called Bay Village, right on Lake Erie. I don't know if you can see that image, but that's actually a playoff game where the Browns were, all they needed to do was run that football over that goal line there. But you can see the balls on the ground, if you can see in that photo. And we ended up losing that game, kind of the letdown of the Browns over the years. Ironically, I now live in Denver, Colorado. So and the Denver Coloradoites will not let me forget about the pain of that game after all those years. But I put up the sports picture there because at a very young age, that was my passion, my love, everything sports from sun up to sundown. The picture there of in the football uniform is when I was playing high school football. A good friend of mine in the picture was one of the cheerleaders. At a young age, the middle picture there is I learned the two things you can control in your life is attitude and effort. And how you show up makes a difference no matter what the circumstance is. So I used to post that sign on my children's doors, on their closet doors, and every now and then I when they came in with a kind of a wrong framework, I tell them to go back and look at that. So it was meaningful. The M on the right, I went to Miami of Ohio, got a business degree, learned a lot about kind of leadership, and got involved with many organizations. And maybe not didn't realize all those leadership skills that I was gaining from Miami. But a lot of good experiences. The picture on the bottom left, I went to work for Baxter over 32 years ago. You're seeing that initial little picture of me that got me into the buildings and everything else. They didn't give it to me for 6 months. I think I was on a trial period. But been in healthcare and with Baxter for those 32 years, mostly in commercial roles, everything from starting out as a frontline sales representative, being a trainer from a number of years and traveling kind of the globe, and then getting into management of people, an area vice president for a number of years. And for the last 5 or 6, 7 years, I'm a senior director of kind of our national accounts organization that calls on kind of some of the big providers in the country. The middle picture, that's my family, who is the most important thing. My wife's in the center, Kristen. She's the foundation and keeps our household together. Got 3 children, starting on the right, Lily on the right bottom there, and her twin brothers, Evan. We're not sure where he got that height. And then my daughter and Nina in the front, who's the oldest one. They're 20, almost 25 and 23, the twins. The twins just graduated from college, so I'm done with that part of our journey. And then on the right, I have legacies. After you've been around a while, you kind of think of, hey, when you leave this world and go on to a maybe even better one, what did you leave behind, both professionally and personally? And for me, it's, hey, did I make somebody smile? Did I make somebody laugh? Did I improve somebody's life? And so you start thinking about what your legacy might be. So that's me. Audrey, thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Alan. And part of your legacy is taking time out to be with the folks on this call, right? As we all expand our knowledge and learn from each other. I'm a huge believer of peer learning. I teach at Harvard Business School, and we have incredible faculty. And there's one session we do, which is peer learning, and it always gets the highest ratings. And so I know the value of peer learning, and I'm really hopeful that we can learn from each other today on this session. So Alan, we appreciate you, and this is part of your legacy of giving back as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and invite Sue. Sue, if you could tell us your name, company you're from, and share your images in 6 images.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Audrey. And hello, everyone. Very, very excited to be here. I'm Suganti Nadaraja. I go by Sue voluntarily, not because I Americanized myself. I've always been called as Sue. So just want to get that out there. So I work with AWS, that's Amazon Web Services, which is a cloud division of Amazon. I lead their data team for the global sales and business development teams. And I'm here today and I'm going to introduce myself with 6 images. This is Audrey's process, and I love it. So it made me really think hard and long about how do I characterize myself with pictures. So the first picture talks about me, how I got started in technology. I think of myself as a technologist. When I was 12, I started coding. I fell in love with coding. And I started coding, and I learned to code in over 20 languages over the next few years from then. But that got me really interested in using algorithms to solve problems, be it personal, be it business, be it work, be it school. So I've been coding a lot, and that naturally graduated me to become an engineer. And that was against, I'm an Indian by origin. So I was expected to become a doctor, an MD. And I was educated in, I took biology, physics, chemistry, the whole shebang till 12th grade. But I flipped to engineering, and it was a letdown for my family, especially my dad, who really wanted me to be a doctor. But it is the coding and the algorithms and solving problems with logic that got me into engineering. And I still use that today across everything I do. So that was a big factor of how I evolved and who I am today. And I like to think of myself as a global citizen, because as a kid, my parents moved around a lot within Asia. So between Sri Lanka, India, Singapore, I've lived in a lot of different countries, going to different schools. And of course, coming from India, I decided to go to my master's in Canada, and my work, working for companies like Honeywell, BlackBerry, and Amazon. I've led a lot of global roles. So I've lived in Middle East, Asia, Europe, and now North America, both Canada and the US. I'm based out of Seattle in US. And, I don't see myself as belonging to any one nationality anymore, because who I am has been groomed by so many rich experiences from across the globe. So if you ask me, Sue, are you American? Are you Indian? Are you Canadian? I don't know. I'm a citizen of the world, and I'm proud of it. And I've had the privilege of that experience. Talking about experiences, those of you who have kids, nothing beats having a family, having your own kids and your husband. I have a boy and a girl. I have a 12-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. I have a very supportive husband who's fine with me taking off whenever I want for work. So I have a very supportive family. I'm very happy for that. And the next picture is something very, very personal to me. So, I moved around a lot, and I've always had to figure out, how do I fit in? What do I do to get accepted in the community and the culture? And I had blinders on about the gender thing until I had kids. I went off on maternity leave and I came back, and then I'm like, wait a second, things are different for women. And you would think, you didn't know that? I knew it, but you don't really realize it until it happens to you in a big way and affects a lot of things that you care about. So then I started noticing I was the only person in meetings, especially as you grow up in your career and you become management. You were the only woman for the longest time in several meetings around the table. And I then started taking a personal objective to drive diversity and inclusion. So I spend a lot of my time, it's one of my biggest passions today, talking to university students, promoting diversity and inclusion. And we have a lot of programs that I'm part of, where we pull in veterans, reskill them, upskill them into the workforce, folks who've taken maternity leaves to bring them back after a few years break into the community of tech. So I am passionate about it, and it's a big part of who I am. Being a technologist, I love using technology to solve problems. So artificial intelligence is my new thing. It's been there for a while, but I'm going to talk a little bit later about generative AI, which is super cool. If you haven't heard about it, I am super excited to get you started on that vision and mission. And hey, welcome all to the session. Looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, thank you, Sue. Appreciate that. And we also have Ellen O'Neill joining us. You can't see her face, but you can see an image. She's going to be visually capturing our conversation for today, and we're going to memorialize it through an image. And so Bonnie, you've seen us do that before. It's just a beautiful way of capturing the expressions, and we'll send that to you at the end of this session. But we're going to have a short poll. We want to hear from you. Alina, could you launch the poll for us? There we are. what are the greatest challenges you're seeing from your vantage point? You know, we have Tom on from Alina. We have Tom Jordan on from, you know, different organization. We have Karen Conway on, and so many different perspectives. Tell us, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing? And Alan's going to be keeping his eye on that. And when we see the results coming up, we'll open it up for a little bit of a conversation.
Audrey, do you just want us to speak or raise our
Oh,
hand? Or
Can you vote in the
I
poll?
did vote. I did vote.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll wait until it's finished, Karen.
Okay, very
and
good.
then we'll take some inputs. But thank you for being so enthusiastic.
We've got a few votes still coming in, so let's just wait for one more minute.
There we are.
Audrey, can we see the results or not yet?
Yes. If you want to end the, if you end the poll, will we still see it?
I don't think so.
No, leave it there. Alan, let's have you hop in and share with us what are you seeing there?
Well, you know what? It's funny. I'm not seeing the results, so maybe I'm missing something here.
Okay, maybe that's because I'm a host. Alina, go ahead and post them.
That sounds great. Let me see. You should be able to see the results now, everyone.
Yeah, and I can see them. I can see them.
All right. What are you seeing, Alan?
So, people and talent were definitely one that I would have voted for. I actually, as I thought about this, I would have chose all of the above, and I did, because, you know, any organization starts with people and talent. And today there's so many challenges around workforce shortages that we're seeing, the aging workforce, you know, that can lead to burnout and stress, talent retention. We're seeing all of that. And so that impacts this frictionless patient care that everybody wants to deliver, right? If you're having people and talent challenges, how can you deliver tremendous consumerism patient care that everybody wants? And then, Sue, from your world, technology, which is awesome and expanding at a rapid pace, especially with AI. I mean, how do you implement that if you've got shortages in people and talent? So I think they're all intertwined. And so I'm seeing challenges with all of them. And from an organizational standpoint, people and talent, and, you know, this is about strategy as well. You got to have the right people. They have to have the right vision. Everyone's got to lock arms to execute on a strategy. So we're seeing that as a challenge in our own organization. Audrey, you've been working with us, so you know that, right? As we kind of redefined who we're going to be moving forward.
Yeah, and we were just together yesterday, Alan, and this topic came up. But let me open it up. What specifically are you guys seeing around the people and talent? The people and talent. Anybody want to hop in and give us a little color on that? Heather, looks like you might be hopping in.
Yes, hi, Audrey. I know from our organization, and this is what I hear from others as well, is that you just don't have as many people. You know, there's been a lot of restructurings throughout the industry, or folks just not being backfilled. And so you're asking a smaller group of people to do the same thing and do better. And so I did vote for the people and talent. I think that in many cases we have the talent, we just might not have enough people to do some of these other things and to drive the supply chain that we want and best practices. So that's where I see it, is just making sure we have enough for everything that we're asking people to do, so folks don't get burned out.
Yeah, and I see a thumbs up from Lee, but Tom, let me bring you into the conversation. I see your hand raised. We'll have you go off mute and have you hop in here. There you are.
Did you call on me?
Yes, you had your hand raised.
Sorry, my laptop froze for a second there, so I didn't know. So good to see you, Audrey. So my comment is developing talent. It's clearly the shortage and the amount of talent is certainly a big play here, but the ability to spend time evolving and developing talent in a formal and methodical fashion gets lost. And as a result, I think people get frustrated in their work, don't feel as supported, but got to give them the freedom to learn and develop. So I think we're very, very challenged with that at the moment.
The developing piece. And, you know, one of the things we know from the Gallup survey is that 30% of employees right now are disengaged. And you imagine the dollars running out the door. And one of the top ways that you engage talent is through development, Tom, right? And it's the right development. It's not always the traditional training classes that they used to go through. They want real meaningful development. So thank you for raising that, Tom. And I see our dear friend Jane has her hand raised as well. Jane's not on camera because she's recovering from some surgery, but Jane, let's hear your comments.
Yeah, thank you. Audrey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. You know, I picked people and talent, and for all the very reasons that you all just mentioned. But, you know, there's one really important thing about healthcare, and that we know burnout of staff and people has a direct impact on the quality of patient care. And that gets to adverse events. That's how you use new products. And so when you think about supply chain technology and patient care, at the end of the day, we know that if people are burned out,
Yes.
and that's not just about do we have enough, that's about their own morale. And we're having this significant issue in healthcare right now around this. It impacts every single one of these other categories. So, you know, it's amazing the impact on the quality of care that they find that this will have. So that's just my comment. And thanks for including me.
Yeah. Thanks for building on the comments before, Jane, and taking us to that place. Bonnie, let me pull you into the conversation.
Thanks, Audrey. I think I have a little bit of a unique background because I was in healthcare IT when it wasn't even healthcare IT. So I started back in '96 and joined a company that's now called Veradigm, but was Allscripts at the time. And our goal was to build a health record to help doctors provide better quality of care to patients. And I was gung-ho, 25, 26 years old, getting to work with these amazing doctors who are very, very smart and helping them and coming in and transitioning these paper charts where you can't see what meds or anybody onto these tablets that they will use, and went through 25 years of doing that and growing. And the reason that I left was because I felt like some of that has been detrimental to physicians. I feel like in all works of life, we have a lot of data overload. But for physicians and for people in healthcare who are trying to provide patient care, probably get the most amount of overwhelming data put before them to make a decision. And I think that that's hard. And that was a challenge that I had a really hard time with understanding and taking that data and putting it in a way that they can see it. But I also think that rolls right into people and talent. If you statistically look, less and less people are becoming physicians. And I think that that's a scary thought when you start to think about people and talent in healthcare as a whole. So I don't know. I sometimes feel guilty that these are even problems because I feel like I was a part of that creation that was to be something great, but really has some negative influence on it. So I had a hard time picking. So I said all of the above too, Alan. I just was like, I feel like it's all of it.
I know, and this idea of physician burnout is very real. We're working with Dr. Jim Lee at the Mayo Clinic, Anne, and we're talking with him about, he's the chair of the American Academic Association for Allergy and Immunization, and so we're doing some physician development with those physicians, and sometimes what we'll hear from the people that are creating the content is they need time management and they need decision-making help and but that's not what they need. They need some support with empathy and resilience and connection and all of those things. You know, I remember myself, I went to my ear, nose and throat doctor, and you know, I sat on the chair and I was having a balance issue, and he put his hand on my knee and he said, "How are you doing?" And at the time I was very vulnerable and I was burnt out and I had a lot of anxiety and I was stressed, and I said, "I feel terrible." And I burst out crying, and he took his coat off, he took his stethoscope off, he pulled his chair over and he sat down and said, let's talk about how you're doing. And I think when you can teach physicians those types of skills, that's where they get back some of the things that they put in. They don't need to be taught in the technical area. It's how they connect with their patients. So I was blessed to have that beautiful experience. Pam, we'll take you next, and then Karen. Have you come off mute?
Yeah.
There you
Hi, everybody. The one thing that is very real causing this is the large population of baby boomers that are retiring every single day. And we literally cannot graduate enough people to fill those vacancies. And so now we're faced with truly a gap, not by choice, but by numbers, and really going to have to rely on other technologies like AI to help physicians, you know, doctors, nurses. This has been going on for decades, but it's coming at a tipping point right now that we really need to have technology augment so we can reduce the stress on the caregivers. And that's everybody from IT to the volunteers in the hospitals, everybody in between. There's just not enough people. So there is a high bar to help effectiveness, empathy, and we're really going to need technology to step up and close this gap.
Indeed. I'm going to take Karen, I know has her hand raised, and then Sue, I'm going to invite you in to build off that technology piece. Karen.
Yes, thank you, Audrey. And hello, it's great to see friends and new friends. I agree with everything that's said, but I want to take a slightly different approach because I see a lot of the options in the poll as technology, supply chain, people and talent as really means to solving the bigger problem, which is keeping people healthy. Because the fact is we don't have enough people. We do need to structure differently. I think we need to have much more team-based care. The physician can't be trained in everything, but he or she should lead it. But it really is, I think it was best said by the CEO of Froedtert Health in Milwaukee. I had the opportunity to lead a health equity panel, and she talked about the fact that even though they are very much in a fee-for-service model, so not one or a market, not one that is conducive to moving to more value-based healthcare, but she said we've got to stop the incoming. So they are actually focusing a lot on health equity, and a lot of the research I do these days is on the intersection of health equity, environmental sustainability, and the economics of healthcare delivery related to chronic disease. I think we spend a lot of time in healthcare, and good time, looking at advances in healthcare and what we can do, particularly in the acute care setting. When we are spending, whether it's in the United States, it's in the UK, it's in Asia, it's 90% of our healthcare expenditures are on chronic disease. Chronic disease bankrupts individuals, families, it lowers the productivity of businesses, it impacts healthcare systems, entire communities, and it can bankrupt entire countries. So I don't think we spend enough time on this, and it's about keeping people healthy, because a lot of times that cause of chronic disease are those health disparities, are those poorer environmental conditions where people are growing up. It literally can change their DNA. And so I think sometimes we don't focus enough on that. I'm a systems person, I'm a root cause person. So how can we stop the incoming, if you will? And then how do we align all of these other things, including people and talent, to meet those rising needs?
Yeah, we can always count on you, Karen, to bring a unique perspective. So thank you for doing that. And I'm going to call on Sue and see how she might pull some of that together and build on that.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my God, this conversation is fantastic. So at AWS, we have thousands of healthcare customers we work with, and we hear from across the board, and we do help them on their technical challenges. I want to share everything you said resonated with me. I'm going to put it in the context of what I have observed personally in my role at AWS. So cost, we all spoke about a lot of things, but cost seems to be a big thing in healthcare. So the rising cost of delivering care is pushing healthcare organizations to actively look on creative ways to control cost and to improve their organizational efficiency. To do this really in healthcare organizations, this really means they need to be able to meet the needs of their patients and the healthcare providers and provide timely and secure access to all the data we spoke about. There's a ton of data in healthcare, but no one has access to the data in the right context to be able to diagnose it and pull the right insights to improve patient outcomes and even to manage things like reimbursements. And all this eventually will drive down healthcare costs. So we have a lot of customers asking us, help us use technology to drive down costs. We touched upon shortage of workforces and skill gaps. Absolutely, talent and people, biggest challenge in healthcare. The World Health Organization estimates, I believe, about a 10 million workers shortage by 2030 that will affect healthcare industry, which is affect patient care and increase costs within the healthcare systems. This is a growing priority across the globe with healthcare leaders. And many organizations, regardless of payer, provider, life sciences, pharma companies, it doesn't matter. They are collectively working on how can we use technology, cloud, AI, anything. So looking at technology-focused strategies to drive workforce sustainability. How can they improve caregiver experience? It's not just always about the patients as well. It's also improving experiences for the caregiver, as well as improve satisfaction across the value chain. A big theme in healthcare is most payers and providers, they don't have the technical skill set to leverage the technology that's available in the market today. Or the organizational culture is not evolved enough to accept such broad changes within the organizations. So they prefer to buy versus build it themselves. Most technology solutions take a long time to build, and there are great technologies, but many of them prefer to buy the solution a la carte from external sources. This has prompted a huge surge in huge healthcare solution providers. So you'll see a lot of startups in health tech that are building all these solutions to meet the demand in healthcare. So that's a big trend we are seeing across the board. We're all in healthcare. So we're talking about healthcare, so we know security and regulations is top of mind. So we have a lot of data, we have the technology, but none of this matters if we can't do it in a secure and reliable way. So this also is affecting a lot of healthcare organizations to move at the speed that they need to meet the needs of the patients and the healthcare providers. So making sure whatever they do with the data is secure and reliable and follows all the regulatory requirements in the country is a big deal, and it does end up becoming a bit of a blocker and slows down innovation. This is what we've observed, and I love the conversation about sustainability that we just had. Sustainability is important across the globe. In healthcare, even in healthcare, many healthcare organizations are looking for ways to reduce their carbon footprint. and promote sustainable practices, I mean, across the health system. So these are some of the top 4 or 5 themes I've come across, which resonates with everything you've spoken about.
Thank you, Sue. Let me see if there's anybody. Tim, I know you joined us just a few minutes after we got started. Tim from Better Health. You've got a different vantage point. Love to maybe hear anything from you, Tim, at this point.
Yeah, it's a lot of brass tacks. We're a provider organization, but I've worked for a health plan and for medtech and pharma. But I did pick the people and talent just because it was at the crux in terms of overall turnover, availability of labor, all the things that folks brought forth. But I do think where I was surprised actually number 2 was only around 6%, because I do think technology is going to be a real core way to try to address some of those gaps. The hardest part though is adoption. Like even when I was working at the point of care ultrasound company, it was a great product, it was great innovation, but even in our own world, getting clinicians to actually behave differently and adopt things, or in that scenario too, even if the clinician wanted it, the hospital system wouldn't let it through on the IT. So you have a number of different ways that make it very difficult to make change happen. But in a little bit of the smaller company where I am now, it is brass tacks of, hey, I need medical assistants, I need to pay them a reasonable wage, and I need them to stay longer. And then obviously what I have found though is even when you're working on manager capability to try to get those office managers, those regional managers to be better, I think they're crunched. So you do have to think of a different way of working. And that's where I think, altering materially how the job works, whether it's through technology or better process, is probably a better tactic than just doing more training and trying to get office managers to be better.
Thanks, Tim. Karen, I see you want to hop in.
Just real quickly, based on what Tim just said, we can address these problems. I'm always looking for also, how do we solve multiple problems with a single solution? One of the things when we look at where we have shortages, again, going back to Kathy Jacobson, the CEO of Froedtert Health, one of the things that they're doing is they're literally investing $100,000 US every year in entry-level employees to help them become surgical techs. These are employees that are often living in those most disadvantaged neighborhoods, where sometimes giving somebody a job, a well-paying job, is the best avenue to health, much better than anything that we can do in hospital. So we can look at, and there are hospital systems in Chicago, for example, that banded together, created a shared enough resource and are working with community colleges to train medical assistants, et cetera. So how do we fill these shortages? Rush University is doing the same thing in their supply chain. Concordance, a mid-sized distributor, J&J is getting involved now. So we can work in solving both problems in these ways.
Hey, Audrey, it's Alan. Just a quick comment about technology and some of the things that we're kind of seeing from the supplier side. From providers, I think, are being much more judicial in where they're spending capital dollars right now. And actually, you think about moving to technology or products that can provide better outcomes. There's kind of this sense of, it's good enough right now. Let's just get by with it. We're going to defer stuff because of the inflationary pressures in the marketplace today, right? That's hitting everybody's bottom line. So we see a little bit of the yin and yang, like we want to get there, but we've got, these cost pressures, and we're going to be really careful where we spend our capital dollars to move forward. So I don't know, Sue, if you see that as well as kind of an hindrance to moving to more technology, but it's kind of things that I've seen the last couple of years.
Alan, as you said, it's a yin and a yang. So you need to invest in technology initially to drive down your overall cost, but then you're already thinking about driving down costs because you're overextended. You're higher on operational costs. So it's which comes first.
Yep.
You know, one of the things I'd like to do is to shift. So we've talked about the challenges and we've shared perspectives and built on each other. But what about some inputs on what are you doing that's working for you? What have you tried? What have you been ideating on where you've seen some success? And let's capture some of those. Go ahead and just hop in, and I'll create them here on the slide for us, and Ellen will also. So things that you've tried that's working in the talent. Ellen.
Was that to me, Audrey?
Oh, that was Ellen.
Ellen, I was gonna say, okay.
Ellen, go ahead. Ellen Holtzman.
Hi, everyone. My name's Ellen Holtzman. I'm a finance accountant at a hospital. And one of the things that I'm noticing is hospitals make money on inpatient revenue. And a lot of the technologies are moving people to outpatient care. And so I think it's that crossroads of letting go, because you're used to having that inpatient revenue when a lot of the procedures and everything could be done outpatient. So I think what needs to be done is it's a different revenue model in outpatient, and a lot of these technologies flip that switch. And I'm kind of new in my role, so I don't want to like pose a philosophical question, but behind the scenes, I'm gathering data and trying to help it make sense. I know among you that makes perfect sense, but when you're brand new in a job, you don't just say, "Hey, let's switch to an outpatient model." But I am on the team that analyzes those capital requests, and I'll work it in. And I usually use my peer who has been there longer, and then she can kind of say if the fellow audience would receive the information or just to hold off for a bit. But that's what I see. The technology is driving to where you don't have to live in the hospital. Like renting a bed in a hospital is what costs money. If you could just drive by, be in and out in 2 hours or less than a day, then it keeps people healthy. So there's a whole paradigm shift that needs to happen. And we're on the precipice of it. So thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Ellen. How about others as we capture some ideas on things to consider or things to do?
You can provide some food for thought. So I was talking to a CEO recently, and he was trying to drive down operational costs, and his idea was leveraging telehealth for primary care as much as possible, so that they use the hospital and the doctors really for surgeries and treating chronic diseases, so that it's bigger value add proposition that people have to come to hospitals for. Telehealth has taken off since COVID. And I know now we found a right balance. Everything was telehealth. Now we like to go to see doctors every now and then. But I think telehealth is one of the solutions that has taken off and is adding value.
Let me see. Bonnie.
Yeah, I'll definitely say telehealth. But before COVID, no doctor wanted to talk to me about telehealth. I can tell you that 100%. 100%. And after COVID, it's like shot up. You can do anything in telehealth. So that one is definitely true. But I personally think that what I work for Corporate Pharma Software. We produce manufacturing software for people who are manufacturing, life-saving quality therapies for patients, right? And drugs. And that's what I do now that I've moved out of healthcare IT, I'm in life sciences. So it's a little bit different, but very similar. We are external to true healthcare, right? So we're external to the doctors and the nurses and the staff and the lab and everybody that does the work for patients. But yet we should have the patient in mind when we do everything. The patient should be the center of whatever we're talking about, whether we're talking about an MES, an EHR, telehealth, type of care, type of payment. Like I think Ellen said, we're moving into value-based care, but that may not fit for all aspects of healthcare. So for me, it's making the patient centric for everybody who is touching providers or patients. That should be our goal. And when I did that, when I moved into this role and I did that with my team, who really never thought what they were doing affected a patient. And when we started to talk about how it does and how us producing that software improves the quality and how quickly they can produce these, it kind of changed that dynamic of why they came in every day. And it was something for them to look forward to. So for me, it's about the patient being the center of everything, even though you're not sitting in front of the patient.
That's a mindset, right? Bonnie, I would capture that as a mindset. Let me see, I'm just checking the texts as well. Karen, you had a text in there, but let me have you hop in and share your ideas.
Sure, absolutely. I completely agree with Ellen. And yes, we do need to move care. So again, I'll get back on my soapbox regarding let's try to prevent the need for the care to begin with. But we are seeing CMS. This is obviously very US based. I know we have a global audience, but in the US, CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, are, albeit slowly, trying to move more of the kind of using the financial lever and to pay more or to allow more things to be done outside of the acute care setting. We even have things like hospital at home where they're taking care of patients that are at that acute level, normally would be on a nursing ward in the hospital. I think we need to create that pathway, that means for hospitals and healthcare systems to financially make it make sense to move people to where the care should be delivered. And then I just got to come back to the chronic disease, because that's a primary driver of higher costs. Because if somebody is obese, if somebody has diabetes, they are a riskier patient. So no matter what they come into the hospital for, like a knee replacement, they are going to be at higher risk and therefore more expensive to care for. So how do we, again, get the patients as healthy as possible wherever we're caring for them?
Thanks, Karen. Alan, let me ask you if there's any pearls of wisdom that you would offer as our panel member on, ideas for organizations as we think about one of the biggest challenges being around people and talent.
Yeah, I feel like, Audrey, we're so busy working in the system at times that we never work on the system, right? And then my fear is that people quietly, we talk about this all the time, are kind of quitting, right? They're checking the boxes, right? You don't have the engagement levels that you really need to drive the strategy and your mission. And so I think you need to step out, and get away from the day-to-day at times and really look at the bigger picture would be my recommendation, right? To do those oil checks and get out of the craziness that, most of us carry 2 cell phones, and, it's easy just to get so caught up in what you're doing. You're not really looking at your operation and your employees and your talent and talent retention. Your story, Audrey, of the physician checking in with you, how you doing? I mean, we should be doing that as leaders with our teams, right? Empathetic leadership is so important these days.
Right. And, we know that we do a lot of work with engineers. We do a lot of work with finance. We do a lot of work with organizations that are single-digit profit margins. And we talk to them about the leadership capabilities that are in high demand and short supply. And they're almost always blown away because we talk to them about empathy, kindness, vulnerability. Those are all of the leadership capabilities that win the day. I think Tom left us for a second, but he was talking about this idea of development as well, and it's so critical. But Alan, I want to go back to your point there, and I've seen Pam nodding and quite a few others nodding on. We're so busy working in the system versus on the system. And if we think about the system as our strategy, and how many of us are really spending time with our teams working on strategy. I see my dear friend Heather Hansen on here as well, and so she's going to be loving this conversation. But, you know, one of the things that we know for sure is that 90% of employees don't understand company strategy. That's not exclusive to healthcare. That's across the board. And the sad situation is I will talk to CEOs and they'll say, that's ridiculous. I don't believe that. I've communicated the strategy 1,000,000 times. It's in a PowerPoint. We have a town hall, but a lot of the times they're not connected with it. They're just not connected with it. And when they're not connected with the strategy, 67% of strategies fail due to poor execution. So regardless, whatever area of healthcare you're in, get your strategy nailed and then build your people into the process. And why is it that it fails? You know, 30% cite failure to coordinate across units. We have this silo effect. Sales knows what they're doing. Business development might know, tech knows what they're doing, but we don't all know what we're doing together. And measuring the impact is the toughest challenge. That was a recent Gartner study. And then, of course, we have the 20% of people that say, I'm just not in. I just don't get it. I don't believe in it, and I'm not in. And the worst that can happen is they don't tell you that. And that's back to Alan's point, where we get quiet quitters. And the quiet quitters quit, but they don't tell you. Bonnie, I see your hand raised. Let me have you hop in.
So I don't know if you remember, ironically, today, 2 years ago, you were in our Cary office and we were doing exactly what you said. Because it came up on like my Facebook picture or my LinkedIn picture or something of all of us writing up on the boards. And I can validate that when Audrey told me that people don't know the strategy, you may know it in your brain, Bonnie, but your team doesn't know it, because she interviewed my team and I had just stepped into the president's role. So it was definitely a huge challenge. But I can tell you that when I first started, our retention, we were losing people at 22, 25%. And after doing that and implementing it through the whole company, we're down to like 6 or 7%. And I truly believe that it was directly related to the fact that my leadership team and myself always were speaking the same language when we were talking to our talent. We were always speaking the same language. And 2 years later, I look back and like almost like cried when I saw the picture this morning, because I thought that's crazy 2 years ago. And now we're like less than 6%. And we were roughly 25, 30% at that time. So I'm just validating, Audrey, I'm just validating.
Oh, that'll be music to Heather's ears and Alan's ears as well, because we're on that journey right now with that team. And I like to go to the dark side as well. I'm Catherine and I are a tag team on the team. She's got much softer gloves, and I'm always like, what's the problem? Let's figure out the problem. And we'll send you this as a takeaway, but 10 ways to kill your business strategy. And if you're healthcare or any place, is overlook leadership needed for execution. What is it going to take to execute this darn thing? That's number 10. Number 1, create it yourself and present it to the team. We were on a call with Taiwan last night, and the CEO said, I've put together the strategy on a page. I said, I will literally kill you if you show anybody that strategy on a page. I will throttle you, because it's yours and it's nobody else's. And he quickly took his screen down. And so this idea of don't try and create it on your own. You don't have all of the best ideas. And the other thing is, don't create a business strategy without a talent strategy running alongside it. If you're trying to enter a new market, what kind of people will you need to enter that new market? The other problem we see is we don't clarify accountabilities. Who is the one neck to choke? Who is it that we can count on to get this done? The other problem is, well, we're going to review it once a year and we should be good. It should be a living document. The 5th ways to kill your business strategy is drive a silo mentality. I'll share a phrase with you. Crush the silo mentalities. It's one of the best things that you can do. The 6th thing is, don't include metrics. 7, forget to include your mission and vision and purpose. It's all very well to have a strategy, but what's the why? How do we create the fire in the belly? And then pressure test it with your team. Don't create a 50-page document. Nobody's going to read it because nobody has time. But get it down to something really memorable, something that's on a page that you can really speak to. Let me pause there and see if any of that resonates. And we're going to give you this as a takeaway, but we'll give it just a minute here to see if any of that resonates. Yeah, we're seeing nodding heads. Just as we wrap up here, what I wanted to do was stop sharing my screen, and I wanted to see if Ellen could share her screen and show us some of the work that she's been doing on the illustration of our conversation. It's always really fascinating to see it at the end. So Ellen, I'm hoping it's going to work. I see you starting to share your screen here. We'll give you just a minute. Here we come. Yeah, well, it's coming into focus now. There we are. One of the top leadership qualities is empathy. Success. What are your greatest challenges? Our people need to be engaged. How do we leverage technology and looking for creative solutions? I want to thank everybody for getting on this session. Before you go, could you go in the chat and just let us know one takeaway that you have from the hour that we've spent together? What's the one thing that gave you an aha, or the one thing that you learned, or the one thing that has you more curious? Lee, thanks for sharing that you loved how cool that was. Yeah, just one takeaway from each of you. I'll give you a minute. Thanks, Pam. Just a great conversation. That was the same for me. The focus on empathy and vulnerability, Karen. Tom, share strategy and tactics as many units. Tom, we're going to share that infographic with you. Megan, strategy communication. Yeah. Bonnie, you always take the time for yourself. Keep doing it. Keep being the great leader you are. And let me just thank everybody for joining us. We're going to keep inviting you. And if you have time to join our sessions, we'd love to have you. Reach out if there's anything you want to noodle or bounce ideas off. We'd love to connect with you. So thank you, everyone. And we will see you again soon.